What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Week 14 edition of the NBC Sports College Football Betting Q&A. Eric Froton's here. I'm Vaughn Dalzell. And if you haven't noticed, Brad Thomas is back, baby. Welcome back, my guy. How are you?
Dude, I'm doing good. Listen, there's nothing more I love than talking college football and talking college football with my dudes. Every week I would watch the show and every inch of me wants to just jump on and give a play, at least one or two. But with the baby in the arm, it's pretty difficult. But let's say this. I'm going to tell you guys this. She is already a fan of the show.
Oh, nice.
We love to hear that. We love to hear that. We got to know, though, before we do talk college football, your favorite and least favorite thing about being a parent so far. 1 month.
Least favorite thing, you're constantly worrying. So when they're crying, you have no idea, why are you crying? You do the checklist. Is she hungry? Is she comfortable? Or did she poop? Once you get through that, you're like, I have no idea why you're crying. So you just try not to be mean. But I'm a loud person, so I think she's kind of used to me being loud and shaking her about. So favorite thing? Man, I don't know how to describe it, but there is just this weird feeling when you look at your child. You just get this tingly sensation about being happy. And she looks a little bit like me. So I just feels like I'm looking at mini me. It's a really good feeling to just be like, man, this is my child. It's instant love. The second I held her, it became instant love for me.
Man, that is heartwarming. I'm so happy for you, Eric. I know you're happy for Brad too, man. We've been talking about you. We missed you. Glad to have you back and glad to hear everything is going well in the household, my guy. So this is going to be a great show today. Everyone watching, make sure you drop a like, get in the chat. Make sure you ask questions and let us know. I say we kick things off with the biggest game on the board tonight, Washington and Oregon. We got 9.5s and 10s, depending on where you're shopping at. So the lines also move around 65 to 66.5. Brad, you are back in town. So why don't you kick us off with this one? What's your favorite play in this game?
Yeah, my favorite play, it's probably the sketchiest play, and that's going to be Washington plus the 10 points. Let me break this down for a second. For anybody who wants to talk about how good Oregon has played and how great they've looked, they've met the eye test. I just want to talk about it from a value perspective, right? Washington was a 3-point favorite when they played in Seattle, and now it's all the way up to 10 on the other side, 13 points difference. Yeah, sure, you can say that Michael Penix Jr.'s completion percentage has gone down, but the level of competition went up throughout the season. But just me getting an entire 12.5 points of extra value, I have to take it. I actually wouldn't be shocked by any means to see Washington win this game a second time. Yes, Oregon's looked great, but Oregon's one of those teams where there's a little spread offense, and I don't mean it disrespectfully. The little spread offense is one of those offenses that if you figure out how to stop it, it's going to be a long night. You're going to have to force them to throw the ball down the field. And I don't know if it becomes a throwing contest that I really would want to go with Bo Nix over Michael Penix Jr. And that means throwing contest down the field, not completion percentage, because everyone highlights the 78.5 completion percentage for Bo Nix. I think it's nonsense to highlight that.
Yeah, well, I'll be talking about that a lot too. The Bo Nix later on the show. But Eric, I'll let you go next here because I'm going to have a little bit. I'm in semi-agreement with Brad, but I'm looking at this game at a different angle.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, with Oregon, man, they've been dominating everybody since their loss to Washington, going 6-0 with a 99% win expectancy or more in each of those games, averaging 42.5 points per game. And in that last game against the Huskies, keep in mind, Oregon outgained Washington 541 to 415 last game. I mean, they were by Pythagorean win expectations. I mean, they outplayed them in a lot of different facets. So with Washington, they've been walking the tightrope, right? 24-21 over Wazoo. They've had 8 straight wins of 10 points or less, and 6 of their last 8 by 1 score or less. I mean, I think it comes down to the run defense here, where Washington ranks 98th in terms of run defense overall, in terms of EPA per play defensively. They're 61st. So, I mean, it's hard to take an under in this game. We'll put it that way. When it comes to what I'm particularly on, I'm taking Tez Johnson's over 74.5 receiving yards. He's getting double-digit targets per game. I know that he's in the slot there, but, with Troy Franklin, he's up there over 100 yards, which I can't take an under on Troy Franklin out here, the way he's been burning defenses deep. But I just think the overall volume you're going to get out of Tez Johnson makes it a play for me on the 74.5.
I like that. I think both offenses definitely are going to be, able to move the ball up and down the field here. And I like how Brad mentioned, or you actually mentioned, Eric, the rush defense here is going to be the question called into this game. Because I think both passing attacks definitely going to have a day. And I think both quarterbacks have been so elite. And we've talked about them all year, how it changes going from one system to another. You become Heisman contenders and now college football playoff contenders. But for Oregon and Washington, you guys hit a lot of the similar points that I'm going to make in this one, that Oregon has been the better team since these two have met. And while I do think 10 points may be too many, my angle of attack here is Oregon first half. I played the 4.5. I think 6 is fine if you still have sixes out there, because the Ducks have been elite at getting out to leads. They're a very good script-worthy team. Washington's been a team that also can play well in the first half, but I know you guys noticed the last 2 weeks, Washington's been kind of slowing down in the second half of games. I don't know if they're going to get up for this one as much whenever, Oregon's got all the motivation, all the revenge factors. But the thing Brad said is everyone is on Oregon here and counting the Ducks already winners and in the college football playoff. And, that probably gives Washington a little momentum as well. So I'm sticking to the first half here with the Ducks. I think they could lead by a touchdown. The second half will be interesting, and I think I might be live betting the Huskies because they won't go away in the second half, Brad.
Yeah, it's important to remember, too, that Oregon has 2 starting defensive backs out.
Yep.
For this game too, and even with them in the last game, Washington threw on them. They didn't have any problem moving the ball through the air. So I definitely think we'll get points.
Yeah, I have another bet in this game too. I'm going to tease my best bet. I'm not going to give it now, but my best bet does come from this game, and it kind of piggybacks off Eric's point here. But I really do love Bucky Irving over 124 rushing and receiving yards. Sure, if you want to play rushing, I think it's 89.5. You can play that too. But we look at Bucky Irving. He hasn't, had one of those monster games on the ground since they played USC. 41 against Oregon State, 63 against Arizona State. But he's still been getting the targets, right? 5, 4, 6, 4. One game had 8, one game had 9 against Texas Tech. So it's a good combination of a guy who can beat you, who can hit this on the ground, but as well can hit this in the air. And then we talked about whose rush defense is going to step up. Washington 121st in rush defense success rate. Not good. So we know Oregon is going to win the battle in the trenches. Like, that's no doubt. Oregon's offensive line has been playing well. So I like that bet. Even if this game becomes a late push for Oregon, they're not going to get away from the script. And if they have to throw the ball, Bucky Irving's going to definitely be involved.
Yeah, I love the fact that you guys are both on Oregon's 2 offensive guys for me too. So that makes me like my bet. Although I do think this is going to be one of the best games of the college football conference championship so far.
Can't wait. I'll be on the field for it. So you'll be on the lookout for a social media post with an extra play from that particular game, as is customary.
Vegas, awesome. Right?
Yeah, in Vegas. I'll actually I'll be on the field for that. And then the following day is the Mountain West Championship game, which That's sick. So I'll be at both of those.
That's sick.
Man, yeah. Well, enjoy it for sure. We'll be sharing whatever picture given out. We'll be riding those as well tonight. So enjoy that game. Enjoy watching Bo Nix win the Heisman in person, Eric. Yeah, I know you got Jaden Daniels, so I had to say that. New Mexico State at Liberty is the next game for Friday night. Liberty is now 10.5 point favorite. Some money came in on New Mexico State slightly. Total still at 57. And we have a comment here in the chat from our guy Chad, who's always been here, talk about New Mexico State. So I know, Eric, you have some picks in this game. So why don't you lead us off here? And then, Brad, you can answer the question as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, from Chad's point of view, are they a threat to win? And if not, cover that 11.5. Yeah, I think we're going to get points in this game, frankly. And when it comes to Diego Pavia and Caden Salter, frankly, I'm shocked at how low the lines are that they've been hanging these at, because, they're both in that 160, high 160s, low 170, range. And with the offensive firepower we're dealing with on both of these teams, I just think that if you I'm taking the approach where if you take the passing overs and the rushing overs for each of these 2 QBs, I think you go at least 3 for 4. I think both of them are straight up overplays. If you look at Caden Salter, as you see here, His 224.5 passing yardage is plus 290. You can get 3-to-1 returns on that. I think that's a great look. I'm also pairing that with CJ Daniels, who earlier in the week was at 48.5. I've seen him tick up to 51, 53.5, even in a couple of different books. So, he's ticked up a little bit, but I still think he represents a significant value there. So, for those three players and just the over in general, yeah, I'm very bullish on that. And yeah, you can't fade Jerry Kill, like the incredible head coach for New Mexico State with the job that he's done there since leaving Minnesota. And I wouldn't count them out at all. I would not count out New Mexico State. I think we're going to get a fun game here, and no problem with that plus 11.5, Chad.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree here. The firepower for Liberty does make me worried about an outright win. We are looking at a New Mexico State team who's 80th in defensive success rate versus 4th offensive success rate against Liberty. But whenever you have a game where there's two teams that are going to be scoring a ton of points, I kind of lean taking a team who has the upset ability of New Mexico State. So on the spread, I think at one point it was 11.5. I'm not sure what it's at now. Is it down to 10.5 yet? Yeah. But if you could find 11.5, I probably would take the 11.5 plus the points.
Yeah, 11 might not be a bad number because there's going to be some 2-point conversions, missed field goals, those type of things in college or conference championship season. But yeah, I didn't have a strong play on this game. I liked Eric's angle here because I kind of felt like the over was a play. When I saw the line was 57, I thought, man, it's kind of high for a New Mexico State game, it seems like. But I agree with a lot of points you guys made. I think Eric's approach was probably the right angle here. So you got Salter as your ladder play, Eric, correct? Recap.
Salter is a ladder play, yeah, absolutely. I think you could also take a look at Pavilla's. I think both of them are absolute ladder potentials, depending on what kind of odds you can get them at. That 224 on Pavilla, I would look at the plus 199.5. I would look at both of those too if you can find a book that has them. Sure. I'm very bullish on the over in this game.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I'll be riding that one then because obviously got to get a little more action before the Oregon-Washington game kicks off. We do got a question here from Xavier Jones. This one's for Brad about Bucky. Would you play it at 131?
Yeah, I'd play him at 131. I see that you mentioned Hard Rock and ESPN. Check Bet Rivers. Bet Rivers should be hanging the 124.5.
124.5. Okay, yeah. So definitely shop around, but 131.5 would be good to go, you think?
Yeah, I have him hitting his rushing over. And we know with Bucky Irving, he doesn't flirt with his rushing over. It's either going under or he's smashing it.
Yeah, he's so dynamic in so many ways in that offense. So, all right, glad we got that out the way. And Bobby wants to say to Eric, he likes both quarterback rushing overs and New Mexico State Liberty. How do you feel about that?
Bobby Boucher, I'm in, Bobby. We're together. The water boy himself. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, my man. Let's get it.
Yes, sir. Let's get it. Hopefully we get some big hits. You could see some big hits from Bobby Boucher and company tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that game.
Right.
So we got Oklahoma State and Texas kicking us off on Saturday. Eric and Brad took Texas 15.5, total sitting 55. I'm going to lead us off on this one because I like this play a lot. We saw Texas put up some style points last week, gentlemen. 57 on Texas Tech. Obviously, a lot has to go right for Texas. They need a lot of help to get into the college football playoff. But what's first and foremost is they have to handle what's in front of them on Saturday, and I think they do that. Oklahoma State has been weak defensively a couple of times. They lit up 30 points in about half of their games this year, especially the last 3-4 games. But in their losses, 33, 34, and 45 points. I think Quinn Ewers could have a day. I think Xavier Worthy could have a day. I think the Texas Longhorns offense is the most dynamic that Oklahoma State will see so far this season. So I'm on Texas team total over 34.5. Another pivot to that is over 4.5 touchdowns. You can get a slightly better price. With this, we're also including field goals too, just in case that does happen. But I like this play a lot. And Brad, I know you're high on Quinn Ewers as well.
I am. I'm also on your Texas team total over 34.5. And let's talk about that one first for a second. You guys know, love my Alabama Crimson Tide. I like Steve Sarkisian, who stems from that program having won us a national championship. One thing he knows for certain is there's no guarantee that Texas is going to be in. Texas is going to have to win, and I think they're going to win with style points here. They're playing against a team who will let you score on them. But more importantly, the weakness for Oklahoma State is their pass defense. I think they're about 70th in the country in EPA per play against the pass. And I'm taking Quinn Ewers over 265 passing yards because of it. Quinn Ewers, since coming back for his injury, has had 317 yards against Texas, against TCU. 281 against Iowa State, and against Texas Tech, he didn't hit, right? He only had 196 yards, but he could have gone for 300 had they not had a pick six or scoop and score. They just stopping him on short fields. He did not play late in that game, kind of limiting that. I like Eric's play as well, too. I didn't want to triple dip in this game, but you know how it is, guys. It's the last, big weekend outside of the New Year's Six that we have in college football. So by the time game time rolls around, I'll probably take some of Eric's play. So go ahead and tell us, Eric, what you like about Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, I'm taking Xavier Worthy. I actually got him last night at 69.5. I think he might be, I've seen him at 74.5, 75, depending on the outlet. But I also think you can take a look at his alt lines, which is 99.5. You can get a plus 245, 2.5, 1-1 on your money. 109.5 is actually 3.5 to 1 on your money. I just think, as Brad kind of alluded to, the Oklahoma State defense has been prone to shootouts all year long. 109th in EPA per play allowed overall. When it comes to the pass, they're 98th against the pass, 125th in yards per pass attempt, allowing 8.7 yards per pass. That's the 7th worst in the entire country. 122nd in yards per play allowed. Pretty much across the board, this defense has been terrible. And with Texas, they've been nasty since that Oklahoma loss. 66% win expectancy or more in every game. Last game, they rang up 302 rushing yards on Texas Tech, who just had no shot at all whatsoever. I think you're going to see Texas, like you said, they didn't have to do anything last week against Texas Tech. With Quinn Ewers, I'm taking his over 20.5 completions. Last week, I liked him at 21.5. They didn't have to do anything. Okay, they didn't, like we said, they didn't have to take the race car out of the barn, in order to go out and do it to Texas Tech. They're going to want to do it with style points, as Brad said. This week, give me the over for his passing completions. I think that's a lock on Quinn Ewers, and I also like the over on Worthy. I think you get a lot of points on Texas's side.
Yeah, we're all in agreement then when it comes to that one.
Yeah. Seriously, squad ride on that Texas team total over.
Yeah,
all right. Let's
go.
We haven't had a
final Big 12 game. They're going to want to leave an impression.
Yes.
I can't see it. We might have a few squad rides today. We might have because Brad was talking about triple dipping. A little preview. I'm triple dipping later in the show, and I ain't scared. I ain't backing down. But yeah, I like the squad ride here. We'll go with that. And BYU and Houston just let up 30 and 34 points to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State let up 30 and 34 points to Houston and BYU. I meant to say. So it's just like this defense to me is just exactly what Texas wants to see right now. So I'm pretty excited to watch that game kick off, and that's a noon kick for us. So it's gonna be weird not watching football immediately after the show today, gentlemen.
Yeah.
But
I'm getting a haircut.
I'm going down in the black hole to the Raiders Stadium, so that's okay. I don't mind.
That's it.
Yeah. We got a couple interesting games to talk about here. Some mid-majors, I guess we could call them non-Power 5 schools to make a noise. Now, I haven't watched many MAC football this year, so I'm going to leave this one to you guys. Eric, I know you got a few plays, but Toledo's now 8-point favorite. Total sitting at 44. This total is the lowest total in all the conference championship weekends. So the under probably is a lean of mine. What do you got, Eric?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to be looking. We had a couple of overs, obviously, game script wise with these first two games, but with Miami, Ohio, Chuck Martin, their head coach, renowned for his slow pace of play. Literally the slowest pace of play in the entire country. So that's what they want to do. It's not particularly a lot of nuance with them. And lean on the run, 10th against the run, 23rd in passing performance, like really good defense for Miami of Ohio. But with their last four games, I mean, they've had pretty much a 68% run rate. Very, very heavily slanted to the run. 7 of their 9 touchdowns coming on the ground. And that's bad news for their quarterback, Avion Smith, who's more of a dual threat He's listed at 158 and a half passing yards. I like the under against the Toledo defense. It's very balanced. I mean, their offense is obviously, really solid, but defensively, 12th versus the pass, 9th in yards per pass allowed, 20th in EPA total. So like this Toledo team, they can run extremely well. They can play offense, but they're not out there to, gas it up. I like the under script. I also like DeQuan Finn, their quarterback, to go under 27 and a half rushing yards. He has not been running the same amount. This season is prone to giving up at least 2 sacks a game. He hasn't cleared 27 and a half in the last 5 games. And against a stout run defense like Miami, I think you see more Penny Boone than you do see DeQuan Finn. So under script here with Avion Smith and DeQuan Finn.
I love that. And I mentioned this was the lowest total on the board. It's the second lowest total on the board. Forgot that Iowa's in a championship game.
Come on.
Who would have thought that? But yeah. And Bobby Boucher makes a good point, which is why I haven't watched too much Miami football this year since Gabbard's gone out. Brett Gabbard, Blaine Gabbard's younger brother. They have been offensively struggling, and Avon Smith, this happened last year with them too. We bet a decent amount of Miami, Ohio games. Brad, do you have anything to add?
No, Eric kind of crushed what I would think about this game is going under. We have 2 teams that are like close to 100th in rush rate. Means they run more than they pass. What also makes it interesting to note is Miami's going to have a tough time passing on Toledo. I don't want to say if you're saying the exact same things, but basically Miami's going to have a tough time passing on Toledo. Toledo, good pass defense here. My notes have this really close to the total. So I stayed away, and I just have this weird, it's really difficult for me to get down on unders in action. Like I want it to be kind of one of those situationals like we saw earlier in the season where I believe it was Kent State who was playing in terrible weather. They scored 28 points in the first quarter. Then you smash the under there, like under 70. Weather comes in and you're just kind of sweat free there.
Yeah, keep in mind too with Miami, their star receiver Gage Larvadain is questionable. I mean, trending towards not playing. And if they don't have Larvadain, I mean, he was the whole passing offense too. So that's another factor to consider.
Yeah, no, great calls all around on that one. Let's move on to Boise State and UNLV. The Broncos of Boise State are on my no bet list, gentlemen. So I have it written down. I'm not allowed to put any money on this game. I did like UNLV for that aspect because I always lose on Boise State. But the total of 59, I feel like that's really high in this matchup. Eric, how do you feel about that? Do you think we'll see enough defense? You targeting any overs, unders?
Yeah, well, I mean, with Boise State, excellent run game, behind Ashton Genty and George Holani, 9th overall in terms of the rushing success rate and performance, 19th in yards per play. Like this is a pretty decent offense, but defensively, in contrary to the Boise State teams of yore, they're pretty bad defensively. 89th versus the pass, 79th versus the run, 8.5 yards per pass allowed. That's 124th nationally, 115th in yards per play. Andy Avalos, their head coach, has already been fired. And they beat Air Force with a 38-17 run to pass mix. Heavy ground attack there. And Ashton Genty had 225 scrimmage yards last game. I mean, good luck holding him in check because he's listed, I believe, at 78.5 on his rush line. Like you can't take an under on Genty. You can't. The only thing I would say that would give me a little bit of pause is that he's rumored to be entering the portal. Like, I think you'll see a lot of Boise State guys where I saw McAllister go. That's the only thing that scares me. But, man, Genty, wheels up for him because you're dealing with UNLV. I mean, they were down 30-17 to San Jose State last week. They had a 16% win expectancy. They lost that game. Only reason why they're in is the computer went and punched in the numbers and eliminated San Jose State in that 3-way dance. That being said, what UNLV does is their offensive coordinator, HC Brennan Marion, they run the go-go offense, and they rank 9th in terms of their pass offense. I like Jaden Mayava to go over here, like we talked about. Boise State, horrific Number 8 worst passing defense in the country, Jaden Mayava. I like him to go over 27.5 pass attempts and over 240.5 passing yards. I know a lot of you can't get the pass attempts, but I think that's a lock on the attempts. I think they will be throwing, but if you can't, 240 passing yards is a worthy substitute to pair. Also, I like Genty's over too. I think you get an over script here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you liked him. I believe I was going to play 76.5 for Genty over. I didn't bet this game physically. I did take UNLV in my college football pick'em pool. I just looking basically. I kept it simple for myself. I compared EPA margin. I compared success rates, and it kind of spit out more of a pick'em. So I just went with the team that I had more confidence in there. I wish it was a bigger brain thing than just punching numbers, but sometimes you just gotta keep it simple, right? Do what the numbers tell you to do.
No, that is literally like one of my mottos in life. My gym teacher, Mr. Davis from 5th grade, keep it simple, stupid, kiss, was the best thing I've ever learned in my life. I didn't even have to go to school the rest of my life after that. So no, I'm with you. I think that's what you need to do with college football season right now. And I mean, that's why I'm on that Texas team total over. But for the next game, Brad, I really wanted your opinion, man. Because obviously you're a Bama fan.
Yeah.
Roll Tide, roll. I've won 2 straight Bama bets, but don't tell anybody. But so when I looked at this game, this is how I broke this one down. This is where I was leaning, because obviously we saw there's news on Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. We need to see how healthy these guys are, how active they're going to be after, missing practice or barely practicing. And for Alabama, we say Jace McClellan in the same boat, the running back for the Tide. And he's, I don't know if you're a big Milroe guy or not, but McClellan's either number 1 or number 2 in that Alabama offense. So there's a lot of things to consider here, but I like Georgia's team total over 29.5, and I like Alabama's team total under 24.5 based off the injury news. The winner of the SEC championship has scored 30+ in 13 of the last 15 years. So that's kind of where I was thinking, Brad.
I would stay far away from that Alabama under.
Okay.
Alabama, sure, Jason McClellan's going to be out, right? And I think that a lot of Alabama fans will tell you that the way that Roydell Williams and Jam Miller have been running the ball, it's not as big of a loss as it would have been in years prior, right? Years prior, if we would have had a Najee Harris, a Bo Scarborough, a Derrick Henry, those guys go out, then it's a massive, massive loss. I've actually really shocked by how Jam Miller's been running, because I think I was expecting Justice Haynes to be running more in that spot. But Jam Miller's been running pretty well there. I'm actually on the over in this game. So first and foremost, I am kind of annoyed. This is probably the biggest game for me of the entire year. I'm annoyed that we don't have an injury report, right? As of Thursday, so yesterday, Kirby doesn't know the status of his guys. Only Brock Bowers was able to even lightly jog in the 11 on 11, no pads, right? He's probably not practicing today. I'm thinking that Brock's probably going to be, if he plays, limited capacity, give it as much you go. We have to remember he had tightrope surgery. He's already missed 2 games since his injury. And Kirby was the first person to say, if you think that I sat guys out during a football game to rest them for the next game, you're out of your mind. He said that. And with us having no lines on Ladd McConkey, I am kind of worried about that. But I do think this game presents a good opportunity for an over. These two teams score on each other when they play each other. They're very explosive. Jalen Milroe has a 95, and I'm totally winging this number. It could be 92, but it's in the mid to low 90s. PFF grade on passes greater than 20 yards. We have to remember it's a revenge angle for Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton has been all over the message boards, not him personally, but his name has been on the message boards about him being not good enough to play at Georgia. That's why he's at Alabama. He's having a good season here. And then on the other side of the ball for Georgia, we have Carson Beck, who has been playing phenomenal football. This is a Georgia team who we forget, quietly, Carson Beck's been putting together such a good season. There are literal Georgia fans begging him to come back instead of leaving the program. I think we see fireworks here. I want Alabama to win. I don't know if it happens, but their defense has been playing pretty good. Without Lad McConkey, without Brock Bowers, they stand a pretty good chance. There's 2 other players who are out, but I think without either of those guys, I would start to worry about Georgia. Another thing I'm going to ask and kind of explain. So Georgia's been getting eaten alive by running quarterbacks. Alabama has struggled in hostile environments snapping the ball. So I'm afraid to take Jalen Milroe's rush over. But Eric, let me ask you before you get into your player prop, do you lean over Jalen Milroe rushing total, or are you just say, no, I'm out?
Well, I kind of lean over. And the reason why is against ranked opponents, you'd see Milroe is averaging over 15 rushes per game.
Okay.
Against non-ranked opponents, he's averaging 9.5 rushes per game. So they don't really, he doesn't tend to run or like break out the big guns unless he kind of needs to, is what it kind of seems like. And this is a Bama team that's 109th in pace, 40th in rushing performance, as you talked about. Potentially no Jace McClellan, which, like you said, he hasn't. It's not like that's Najee or Derrick Henry or Mark Ingram, some of the TJ Yeldon, the legendary backs of the past for Alabama. Like Jace McClellan he's been good, but he hasn't been irreplaceable in my estimation. So I would lean over on Milroe's rushing yardage. But in this game, like you said, a lot of it has to do with the Georgia weapons. I think we'll see one of them get out there at least, but who knows? It's a closely guarded secret. I love, obviously we talked about Carson Beck a lot on this show. He has been a true player props All-American for me this season. And as well in all my C2C leagues, I'm in 3 Campus to Canton leagues, which just for the uninitiated, you have a college fantasy football team, and then when they graduate, they go up to your pro fantasy football team. So you have a 2-1. I have him in all of my C2C leagues, Carson Beck, preseason. So I have been all in on him, and I do like his overpassing yardage. It started out at 260.5, which is where I got it. Went up to like 265.5. I've seen it 271.5 in some places, so that has ticked up. I mean, I think you're going to see Georgia do everything they can to win this game, obviously. And Carson Beck has been awesome. So with an affectionate nod towards my player props All-American, I'm taking his over. But I'm going to cautiously advise everybody, since we're here on a Friday, take a look and see what we're looking at for the wide receivers. If Bowers, McConkey, what their health status is, maybe before you take this, if you want to be cautious. I don't think it's not going to go up at all from where it's already gone up. So maybe sit and take a look at the health situation.
Yeah, I think that's the way to approach it. That's why I haven't locked in anything for this game. I was hoping for this show I'd be probably locking in Georgia team total over 29.5 because I feel more confident in that. Not because Brad said don't take Alabama, because Alabama has struggled in their one-score games and in their losses. But I think Georgia's just the safer team here. And even if McConkey or Bowers aren't going, they've proved this year without those guys at some points that they could still score points and play competitive games. So SEC is usually a high-scoring game, Brad.
Yeah, it is.
Every year. So we'll see if it happens again. But we know Alabama has to pull out all the stops. It just doesn't feel like 2021, when Alabama had to win and we knew they were a great team. This feels like Alabama is not going to be in the college football playoff, and they maybe don't deserve to be. You agree?
I think I disagree.
Disagree?
Yeah, I think that beginning of the season is weighing too heavily on people's perception of Alabama, right? They struggled against South Florida at the game that I was at. We have to remember that is a game where they were testing out other quarterbacks. They lost to Texas, but people forget that Texas game, Alabama was leading late in that game. It's not like Texas went wire to wire, and Alabama was still figuring out their young quarterback, their young offensive line. But since then, they've improved. This is a defense. This number is different than what I had in my number. I just pulled it up, but I had Alabama 5th in defensive success rate. They're 8th on this number, so we'll just take the average of the two and call them 7th. 6.5 in defensive success rate. So this team has improved steadily. I think that you look, they have 4 ranked wins. They know if they beat Georgia, that'll be 5. And the best win in the country, beating the number 1 team. I think they're, they're solid against Auburn. You can call it what you want. They got lucky to win that game.
Trap.
They can trap game, played it at Jordan Hare. they consistently got to the red zone. They had some really bad calls. I never complain about the refs. You guys know this. They had some really bad calls against them, which kept them from scoring points, and they had the bad snap. So, like, it's not like they were entirely terrible against Auburn. They just weren't capitalizing. But that's been a bugaboo for them all season, has been capitalizing in the red zone. But I wouldn't count them out. I have these two teams a lot more even than the 6.5. The only reason I didn't bet Alabama plus 6.5 is because I'm hoping I get some late Georgia steam, and I don't want to be sitting on a number under 7, especially not. I literally have family that came in town. Like, we're going to be deep. We're going to be deep in Alabama gear sitting at the restaurant. I got a reservation. I'm not going to be sitting on a losing bet ticket because I didn't get a good number.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And this actually opened Georgia minus 3.5 weeks ago is the look ahead line. It's moved out to 5.5. So I assume that'll move out to 6.5 tomorrow, likely, especially with the news of the player who's playing, who's not for Georgia. So yeah, you might be able to get the best line in Alabama closer to game time, which I think is the best piece of advice here. A line that has moved a lot, Eric, and you spoke about this on Betting Big this week with me on YouTube for NBC Sports' YouTube about Tulane and SMU a little bit, but how do you feel about this game? Because there's some injuries that have moved this line and another very low total because of it.
Yeah, well, SMU, their star quarterback, Preston Stone, is confirmed out. He had surgery. He will not be playing. Redshirt freshman Kevin Jennings is in. He's only has 46 career pass attempts. He has a 25% pressure to sack rate. In those very few attempts, we kind of don't know what we're getting out of him. But in addition, SMU's had real attrition in the running back room. Jalen Knighton missed last week, as did LJ Johnson, two prominent transfers from Power 5 programs. And they've had 5 different rushers lead them in rushing over the past 5 games. So it's been a true rotation. Apparently, Knighton and LJ Johnson are supposed to play. We don't know in what capacity. As Brad alluded to, all these injury situations are so closely guarded in college. There's no uniform, injury report. There's no such thing. With Tulane, Pratt, Michael Pratt's been excellent. Their star quarterback, 8.5 yards per pass. It's 21st in the country. They're averaging 2.6 points per drive, 34th. And, Willie Fritz, true to form, they're playing slow, 119th in pace. And they have their defense has been really the backbone of the team because they've dealt with injuries in their wide receiver core. They're down. Jaquay Jackson may or may not play in this game. We kind of don't know. Chris Brazel will probably take over the number 1 role. He's at 51.5. I think it's probably an overlean for me. Depending on Jackson's status, I would keep a look on that, depending on what you want to do there. But 24th in rush D performance too. So, this Tulane team is strong on the lines, each of them. Mekhi Hughes has been phenomenal. Their running back's taken over for Tyjae Spears. I lean Tulane. I like them. We don't know what we're getting out of SMU without Preston Stone. He literally got hurt last game, so this is fresh.
Yeah.
Tough to not take the mean green here in this spot.
Yeah, it feels so trappy. It feels so easy because, when you told me this, the lanes come down in favor of SMU the past day or two because this was 4.5 at one point. And, when I watched Tulane early in the year against Ole Miss, I'm sure everyone remembers that game because the first half specifically, was electric between the two. And then it kind of died down there. But Tulane has played very slow the last 4 weeks, Eric, like you mentioned, and they failed to score more than they reached 30 points in that span, which they were doing all season. So it makes me think, too, there's something in the waters with Tulane as well that makes this game a little fishier and a little too easy to be taking Tulane. How do you feel, Brad? Anything to add?
Yeah, I would probably take Tulane -3 here. My biggest worry is for Tulane, their offensive, them running the ball. They're a really slow-paced team who can't run the ball well. That's really a tough situation for a team against a team that doesn't have their starting quarterback. What that means is when you're a high pace, you're high flying, you're running, you're passing the ball with success. It puts a lot of pressure on the other quarterback who has passed under 50 pass attempts so far in his collegiate career, where you were I need to perform well. And I think SMU doesn't feel that pressure. They can kind of lean on their defense. Why I would take SMU? Why I would take Tulane though? We talked about Michael Pratt, but we also have to talk about Willie Fritz, rumored to go to Houston. Willie Fritz is going to use this game as a either stepping stone or a you better pay me. They've already said they're willing to pay up to $4.9 million per year to keep Fritz at Tulane. If he wins this game, smashes SMU, right? Now, all of the cards are on his table. Houston, do you want me? Or are you going to back up the Brinks truck Tulane to keep me here? I think that's what is the biggest deciding factor for me here. Willie Fritz is a phenomenal coach. And so he's going to be coaching this team like he does in an exceptional manner.
No, I love that angle. I think that's something worth noting too, because not a lot of people are going to be capping games based off of that alone. But I think when you got a coach with motivation as well, that certainly adds fuel to the fire. And I'll say the only thing positive for SMU with the backup quarterback is you get a week of prep for this guy. It's specifically to him, and the other team has no film based off of what you're going to be throwing at them. So that works out a lot for college football, but it doesn't work out for 4 quarters all the time. So we'll note that one. Like Tulane too. Anything you want to say, Brad?
No, I like that. Let's move over to Appalachian State versus Troy here. I actually need your guys' opinion. So my college football pick'em, I left the spot blank for the longest. I just couldn't find a good angle on who I wanted. I ultimately went with Troy, but I don't know if I'm comfortable taking Troy, laying the 6 with Troy. I would probably take the +6 with Appalachian State. I ended up, it's only a money line pickup, so it makes it much easier. But I want to see what you guys think of this game.
Yeah, sure. As far as Troy, man, I love Troy's defense. And if it weren't for James Madison, everybody would be talking about Troy as having the best group of 5 defense. Just the numbers are incredible. It's 7th in terms of EPA per play, only allowing 15 points a game, 5th nationally, 4.7 yards per play. That's 11th nationally. Top 15 against the pass and against the run. I mean, just everything about Troy is built to grind out a game like this and to snuff out an Appalachian State team that, Aguiar has been pretty awesome. I mean, he's a wild man, and that's something that's a factor here in my cap, that he has, in terms of turnover worthy throws, he leads the country. Joey Aguiar, quarterback for Appalachian State, has an 8-24 big time throw to turnover worthy play rate, a 1-3 ratio. That is as bad as you're going to find in the country. But I mean, he gets it done. He also makes big plays. They rank 22nd in terms of overall passing performance. But what they don't do is they don't stop the run. And Troy has Kamani Vidal, who is one of the very top G5 running backs. Appy ranked 101st against the run. Troy being one of the absolute apex pass defenses in the country. And you're going to have a guy like Aguiar, who is prone to the interception, prone to making bad throws and taking chances against this Troy secondary. I can't back them here. I have to take the Troy Trojans against an undisciplined Appalachian State team.
Yeah, Appalachian State gets the, they knock off all the big teams. They win the games they're not expected to. And I kind of feel like that's why this line might be 6. And I did look at Aguilar, Eric. I was impressed with his statistics from just a plain rate, not the advanced stats, because he has a lot of nice numbers.
Oh, yeah.
They have a lot of running backs that score. But
takes chances.
Yeah. And I mean, that either, you do or die when you take chances, like in basketball. You shoot the 3 all the time. You're going to do or die by the 3. So I think it's a certain situation where, Brad, when I was looking at money line sprinkles, I was like, maybe App State's worth a play, but I had really nothing to go off of besides 1 or 2 games this year where I thought I really felt confident in them. So I guess we're going with Eric on this one, the Troy Trojans.
Yeah, we're gonna have to
I'll also take the over on Eli Wilson, wide receiver for Appalachian State, too. I just think they will be throwing the ball. They're going to have to throw the ball a little bit. I don't think they're going to have as much success on the ground as they'd like to, and they are kind of wild. Wilson's cleared 45 yards each of the past 2 games. He's been more involved, and at 32.5, that's a pretty reasonable line to go with him. Feeling wild.
All right.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, let's ride with that one. So we got to get a pick in this game somehow. So Eric, thank you for that.
Thank you.
But we got Louisville and Florida State. Then we got Michigan and Iowa. We're going to give out our best bets, people's parlay, a little look ahead at some futures as well. So kicking off with Florida State and Louisville, 2 backup quarterbacks now in the situation. The money's coming in on Louisville. The line's actually coming down to 2 and 1.5. at some
Yeah.
spots. Brad, what do you like?
Yeah, the line's coming down because oh my God, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Quarterback for Florida State is rumored.
Rodemaker?
Yeah, he's rumored to be out due to still concussion. I didn't care. I actually played this before. I played the +2 at +100 for +2.5 for +100 for Louisville here. I had this game circled on my calendar the second Jordan Travis got hurt. Because I felt that this Florida State team would have to rely on their run game a little bit more, right? But this is a Louisville team who's been pretty good against the run, right? Like this is a good defense against the run, which also led me to take Trey Benson under 92.5. Trey Benson probably shouldn't have got 96 rushing yards last week. He wasn't great, right? Had one run of 36 yards, which pushed him over his rushing total. We talked about this off air. And what's very funny about this is they're playing against a Florida team. We could say that Florida got up for this game. They definitely did. That's their Super Bowl every year. But this is a terrible, terrible Florida run defense. And Florida State was not able to establish the run. I think Louisville is going to come into this game with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, having get knocked off by their rival Kentucky. Kentucky came to play in that game. So for those who don't know, I'm going to do a little quick story time. I'm a college football bowl scout. So basically I'm on the selection committee that kind of helps vote on put teams where they want to be. So you get a little peek behind the curtain. And I heard this great story about when Jeff Brom got the offer to kind of coach Louisville, his dream team. If I had heard this story about, him kind of dropping everything he was doing, building that program at Purdue, coming over to Louisville, I would have bet on Louisville to win this conference in 1 year. The passion's there. He's a great coach. The things that he's done to this team to turn this program around really inspire a winning mentality. Florida State is so talented, especially on the defensive end. They have great wide receivers in Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. But to me, it's just the fact that they're playing against an underrated defense in Louisville who did give up 38 to Kentucky. So I am going to give them that little crossout game. I just think that me taking the points here on a team that I think is going to win, I'm going to have to take the points.
Yeah, I lean the points too. It's just a situation where Florida State, I know they need to win. It's a win or go home situation for them, absolutely. But everything has been stacked against them the past few weeks. And last week, Florida State had to win that second half 17-3, to pull away from Florida. A game I liked Florida in. And it's just, I want to go to the window with Louisville, Brad. I haven't been confident in Louisville as a team all year, but what you said about Brom.
Well, you were confident. You were confident in them against, who was it? Notre Dame?
Yeah. There's been spots. I picked my spots, because I faded them against picked them against Notre Dame. During the week on Monday and Tuesday, I was like, Louisville's beating Florida State. Wednesday and Thursday, I'm like, I kind of like Florida State. And now that we're here on Friday, I literally just lean the under because I think it's going to be a slow pace, a dogfight, two quarterbacks. Plummer's not going to have much success either, in my opinion. But we still have another night to sleep on this one, guys. Eric, you got a bunch of props, man. And you're on Trey Benson as well, which is spelled incorrect on this graphic that I missed.
Yeah, well, with this game, gosh, look at what Florida State did last game against Florida. They went 4 for 14 on third downs. 224 total yards. Bro, Tate Rodemaker, 12 for 25 for 134 yards, a 48% completion rate, 64.4 NFL passer rating. He has a career 57% completion rate with a 6-10 big-time throw to turnover worthy play rate. Defensively, like you said, Florida State was nasty. They were down 12-0, held Florida to 46 yards in the second half with 6 sacks. So, we know what they're going to want to do here. They're going to need to grind out a victory. It's not going to be pretty. Whereas Louisville on the other side, like we talked about with them, they're backing in as well, losing to Kentucky, who had lost 5 out of their last 6 previously and, got outgained 403 to 289. I just can't help but see there's no way you can take an over in this game. All right. You can't. So I'm a pretty strong lean on that under 47.5 in terms of the game total. And when it comes to the players themselves, obviously Tate Rodemaker, I already put it out in my column under 195.5. passing yards, which I feel like it's self-evident almost. Like you
Yeah.
kind of have to do that out of principle. But, I know a couple of sharps who were on the over, so I am contrarian a bit in that play. James Thrash, I'm going under 62.5 receiving yards.
Jabari.
He started at 65.5. Has ticked down a little bit, and the reason why is because he really hasn't done much the past couple of games. He's been banged up, and against his Florida State defense, like good luck passing on them. Maybe he breaks one, but I'm not bullish on that happening. Trey Benson, as we discussed, under 93.5 receiving yards. I think you see some the Toa Philly split backfield, and not a lot of. I think you're going to see some stacked boxes. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you be daring Tate Rodemaker to throw on right now? And because I love Keon Coleman, and I have more shares of Keon Coleman in the college fantasy and C2C realm than any human being on earth. That's a fact. Anyone on earth, I have 11 shares of him. I got to go over as a guy that I've loved all year and has proved me right. 47.5 receiving yards is just
super low line.
Oh, that's just, like you're just begging me to take that over. If you don't want to, because that's a personal thing on my side on Keon Coleman, I understand, but I'm going to take the over on him for posterity because he's going to the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, extremely low line for him. Obviously, he's at 24 yards in 2 of his last 3 games.
Just saying, oh, come on. Yo, he can't get 48 yards.
It's his biggest game for him, baby. Yeah, he's going to be getting the ball. I like that.
Rodemaker, okay, fine. Take my money.
I will say this, too, kind of backing up that Thrash play. I don't know if anybody noticed. Since Jamari Thrash, I don't know what he did to his hand, broke it, sprained it, whatever. He's went and turned into a body catcher. It's kind of like instead of catching with his hands now, he's been catching balls into his body. So he's had a lot more drops, which drops are great when you're betting unders. Just pay attention to that while you guys are watching the game. I really enjoy watching him play football, and I can't bet his under, but Eric's right spot on. Like he went 6 for 60 last week.
Yeah, and speaking of drop passes, we're going to see a lot of them in Michigan versus Iowa. Total sitting at 35.5. Deacon Hill is going to be quarterbacking for Iowa. How many points do the Hawkeyes score? Brad, Eric?
3.
Boy. Oh, no.
That's a hard 3.
Particularly good about it.
Yeah. Like I don't want to say they score 3 because it might be one of those they're down 28 late in the fourth quarter and they just get like those 3 to put on the board. Like everyone goes, "Oh, down 28, you're kicking a field goal." Great math. But on the for parents, it's going to be more of, yeah, we got our guys some points against this defense.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be hard to score at all. Like Deacon Hill and Eric, I wanted you to kick this off because Brad has a play that I'm going to be on, and I have a trifecta of 3 plays. But Brad, Eric, you have a winner in Deacon Hill's prop. Like that's no question. He has to throw for over 24 pass attempts.
Yeah, call Alabama the Crimson Tide. Call him Deacon Hill, as the great Steely Dan once paraphrased. Yeah, I like his over 24.5 pass attempts, and then we are with the attempts again. Doesn't mean completions. I mean attempts. He's been sailing over this particular line, week in, week out, and especially in a game that is going to have. I think it's pretty fair to speculate that they're going to be trailing. They're going to have to try to make up some ground, and I can't picture them just running the ball in the teeth of the Michigan defense and getting much traction out of it. As he's 260 pounds, so I think he can take the hits that are coming his way, Deacon Hill. I don't think he'll get injured. As long as he doesn't get hurt, I like the over here. That being said, you got to feel bad for Deacon Hill. Number 1, you mentioned the drops. Number 1 in the FBS with a 16.5% drop rate, Deacon Hill. Most in the entire country, and in fact, second is 2.5% less. That's Ethan Kaliak-Manis, who's now in the portal for Minnesota. So we're talking about an absolutely biblical set of receivers and pass catchers for Iowa that just cannot hold on to the ball to save their lives. And obviously, where they're playing Michigan, they terrorized McCord. They only sacked him once, but they pressured him 8 times, threw 2 interceptions. I don't see how you can take Iowa. I know we got a couple people in the chat that are on Iowa plus 22. They are strong-willed people who I admire.
Yeah, Ivan, you're tough. Mario, you're tough. But I will say this, the angle that Brad and I are looking at, though, I mean, you'll probably get a better number on Iowa live at halftime in this game.
Yeah, you probably will. Welcome back, Coach Harbaugh. Served his suspension. Since I wasn't with you guys last week, I'm sure a lot of people don't know. Michigan put the biggest dagger inside my heart last week. I had a $50 to win $72,000 parlay, where if Michigan gets the first down, I cover that last leg of the parlay and win. They lined up to go for the fake, and I was so happy. I was like, here we go. All the games ended at the same time for my parlay 12-legger. I even had Iowa covering the spread in their game, and it was a roller coaster. It took me like 3 or 4 days to recover, because what stinks is that the cash out option, they offered me $1 during the games. They offered me $3,000 before the games. No cash out offer when Michigan had the ball, and when Ohio State had the ball, and I was heartbroken. There was no line that I could have possibly hedged. But with that said, the reason why Michigan covered the spread in that game was because Michigan has the highest pressure to sack ratio in college football, one of the highest pressure rates in college football, one of the higher sack rates in college football. Obviously, they all intertwine. They're going to be getting pressure on Deacon Hill here. They're going to score more than people believe. I think people see Iowa's defense, which is good. Also down, I can't remember who's out, down a corner. They see Iowa's defense and they just think stone wall. It's not always about how the defense performs on how the other team scores in their success. It's about how the offense can keep that defense off the field, and how the offense can make sure they are not in bad field position playing defense. And I don't think that happens with Deacon Hill leading that offense. I think they're going to have a lot of 3 and outs. They're going to be punting a lot, and there's going to be a lot of advantageous field position for Michigan, which is how they were able to cover the spread against Ohio State, because Ohio State gave them great field position late in the game, which killed my bet.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear that. I did not know that while I was at the game, or I'd have been pulling a little more for OSU. But yeah, I mean, I said to you guys both, I'm not taking Michigan spread in that game because, one, I'll be driving home 5-6 hours. I couldn't imagine losing out on 72,000 then driving home 6 hours. So those off of a spread. So yeah, that's why I took Michigan's money line. Not saying that's the move that you should have did at all, Brad, because it was definitely a game that I thought Ohio State could have won. At the end, when they gave Ohio State that fumble recovery, I thought, oh God, here we go. So Ohio State's certainly a great team, and Michigan proved they are the best team in the Big Ten last week. And I still think that they are going to win it all. I think Georgia and Michigan are set up for a nice date, the national championship. And I think Michigan gets out to a nice scripted start here against Iowa to take care of that tough defense. They get out to at least a 7-0 start, cover the first quarter spread. I'm with Brad here in the first half spread. And this is where you can get a better number on Iowa in the second half, because Jim Harbaugh has no reason to win this game 50-0. No reason to continue to put on the gas pedal against Iowa. They are in, and they're in. Iowa knows they're not going to win this game for the most part. So Iowa team total under 6.5. Michigan pulls all the troops at halftime midway through the third quarter, and then we sweat out the team total under for that one. So any objections to the trifecta, gentlemen, before we move on to best bets?
No objections. I didn't take Michigan minus money line, which I thought they were going to win the game, just because I wanted to keep the parlay no lines worse than minus 115. I took a couple dogs in there. I will say I have them to make the playoffs here, so that's pretty much a check mark, easy bet. For them to win the national championship, they're going to have to get healthier on the offensive line. But this is a game where you do it. This is a game where you let your guys get a little rest after you go up big. So I like your plays there.
All right, let's ride. Let's go, Jim.
I'm also on Cornelius Johnson's under 35.5 receiving yards. Another player props All-American. We got a lot of corny Johnny this year. So on to best bets. Sorry.
Yeah. Cornelius he looked good last week, but yeah, I'd probably go under here, Eric. I'm with you. Technically, Eric, we are tied for best bets, but I'm a gentleman. I'll let you go first.
Oh, you are such a gentleman. I am going to go with the aforementioned Diego Pavia over 168.5 passing yards against Liberty. Again, I love how that game is shaping up in terms of a high-profile shootout. As stated, love Salter in terms of his alt line. I think you can take a look at the Pavia alt line as well on this. This is a flagrant line, 168.5. He is sailing over this.
Yep.
That's so funny you say that, Eric. And because Pavia, I had an alt line for him. Like, he just need to get 200. And I put a bunch of money on it, like plus 500. I put a bunch of money on it because it was so free. And he ended up passing like 175 yards, and I was heartbroken. I like your best bet. I just can't forget.
A competitive game where they're going to have to play.
Yeah, no, I like your bet. I'm just saying you can't forget about the time the guys burned you. Let's talk about a guy. Let's talk about a guy who burned Oregon. I'm going to go with my best bet, Jalen Polk, over 48 receiving yards. 48.5, excuse me. Jalen Polk has hit this number in 90%. He's hit this number in 5 straight. He's hit this against Oregon. Impossible negative game script they're going to be throwing to him. Obviously, we know what Rome's going to be doing on that side, but we have the reliable target in Polk. Polk's been getting enough targets. He's been going over. I like this number. It is my best bet. It is literally my best bet of the weekend. I've played this multiple times. I'm excited to see this one home tonight.
Let's go. Yeah, I love the offense in that game. I love the offense and both offensive potential for both those players in their game. So, and I'm going with Oregon first half, 4.5. Friday best bet, and Saturday best bet for me is the Iowa team total under 6.5. I project the game to be 35-3. Michigan beats Iowa. Iowa gets that fourth quarter field goal, like Brad said. So they get held without a shutout. But let's do the people's parlay now, since we covered all our bets. Brad, you're taking Louisville.
I'm taking Louisville. I was torn between my people's parlay, whether if I was going to take Louisville or I was going to take Tulane money line. I ended up going with Louisville. I'm a little bit more confident in the situation for Louisville here. Man, maybe that story moved me about Brom and a little bit too much. But, man, I'm telling you, I had a glass of wine. I'm sitting in this meeting. I'm hearing them talk about Brom and the phone call and all this nonsense. And I'm all over Louisville this week.
Let's go. I love to hear that. Eric?
Let's roll. I am going the over in Boise State UNLV, 58.5, right around there as we're looking at. As previously stated, Boise State's pass defense is one of the worst in the country. And when it comes to UNLV, they are the go-go offense, but they are not the stop-stop defense. I think this is going over.
And my leg is Georgia money line. They are going to be number 1 seed, which I know Brad hates here. Now looking back on, I wish I'd have put Texas team total over in this spot over our people's parlay, but I already placed the bet, so I ain't changing nothing. Bulldogs win their 30th straight game. We got a plus 447 leg parlay. We are 3-10 on the season, minus 0.7 units. So we win this one. We're positive.
I'm going to be rooting that we lose this one. Nick Saban is undefeated in Atlanta, just mind you. So you're going to have to beat the undefeated Nick Saban to hit our parlay.
Hey, I'm about it because history happens. History changes. History is meant to be broken, but history also repeats. So we'll see what happens, Brad. Before we get out of here, we got about a minute left. Eric, any picks left to bring out? Brad, and then I'll go.
Any picks? Geez. I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. Let's see. I like Prince Strachan, Strachan, Boise State. I like him to catch a deep one over 22.5 receiving yards. And I think that covers everything. That's the only one I think I missed.
Okay. Sounds good. And I do have one pick to give out for next week. It is the Army versus Navy under. You guys already know what it is. Go get it now. It was at 31 and 32 on Monday. It's down to 28.5. Might close at 24, 25, honestly. All right, Brad. Anything for you?
No, that's the last of them. I'm excited for today. I mean, today, tomorrow. It's going to be a great weekend. Guys, thank you for welcoming back with open arms everyone in the chat. I absolutely missed you guys. I love the energy. I love the questions. I think that we're going to make a bunch of money. That's what really excites me. We're going to watch good football games and make a ton of cash.
Yes, let's go. Well said, Brad. And we'll leave it at that. NBC Sports Betting Q&A. Brad Thomas is back. Eric Froton stays winning. NV Money's hanging out with the boys. We'll see you guys next week. Let's keep making money.